Vernon Hall, Chapter 17. An Impromptu Proposal. My horse galloped through the woodlands and across town. All the while I thought of my fortunes, or shall I say, my misfortune. I already knew everything wonderful in my life was ephemeral, but nothing meant more to me in the world than Ezekiel. I was sure Gareth was mistaken, and that Ezekiel had a plausible explanation for his name being identical to the evil monk. A tumultuous rush of sensations overcame me, and I was torn by doubt and fear of losing Ezekiel. I finally reached the shores. It was now noon, and the silver sea was flooded with a soft golden light, the sky's mother of pearl. It was such a tranquil afternoon. Yet I was on the verge of a dismal confrontation. I strode to the cabin, my horse trotting behind me, and knocked on the damp wooden door. Ezekiel immediately flung the door open and greeted me with a warm smile. "I saw you through the window. I'm so delighted to see you, Eleanor. Come inside." I entered, and the cabin was just as chilled and disorderly as it had been before. I seated myself at a wooden chair by the table. "I don't quite know what to offer you, but if you like, I could fetch you a glass of water." He continued beaming. His hazel eyes glowed as the afternoon sun penetrated through the dilapidated windows of the cabin. He seemed paler than before and slimmer. I wondered if he had eaten at all. "Ezekiel, are you well? You look very weak," I remarked, being genuinely concerned for his welfare. He knelt beside me and held my hand. "I have been feeling a little under the weather, Eleanor, but now that I've seen you, I feel much better," he exclaimed in his deep voice. "Ezekiel, will you tell me something honestly, if I ask you?" Ezekiel's beautiful smile vanished, and a wave of anxiety flushed his pallid complexion. He furrowed his brow and withdrew his hand. "What would you like to know, Eleanor?" "What is your real name?" I spoke bluntly. Ezekiel gave me a blank stare. He bit his lip, cleared his throat, then spoke firmly. "Is this some sort of a joke, Eleanor? You know my name," he retorted. "Do I, Ezekiel? Because I have just been informed that Ezekiel Lloyd was the name of the evil monk who lived at Vernon Hall. Ezekiel Marlowe Lloyd. I have his journal." Ezekiel glared at me momentarily, then turned his face and narrowed his eyes. "Who have you been talking to, Eleanor?" "Does it really matter? What matters is that I love you. I gave you my heart, and you lied to me." My voice cracked, and I felt my eyes grow wet with tears. Ezekiel maintained his glare. "Eleanor, it is a sheer coincidence. Yes, you are right. One of the evil monks was called Ezekiel Lloyd, and so am I. What difference does it make?" I was unable to meet his eyes, and I whispered under my breath, "You're lying." He knelt beside me and spoke rather softly, given the inquisition. "Eleanor, I may not be a perfect person. In fact, I'm far from it. I have lied about many things in my life. But believe me, I never lied about loving you. In fact, that is probably the ultimate truth of my life." I looked into Ezekiel's hazel eyes. There was an uncanny honesty in them, and I wanted to believe him. He held my hand again and cleared his throat. "Eleanor, I don't want to waste any more time. I've been thinking of saying this to you for quite some time now, but I suppose now is the right moment." I was perplexed. The right moment for what, Ezekiel? He looked into my eyes sentimentally and smiled softly. "I love you, Eleanor. Will you be my wife? Will you marry me?" I was thunderstruck. It was the moment I had waited for since I first saw Ezekiel. I had dreamt of a fairy tale prince sweeping me off my feet. And now I had attained what I yearned for. I should have been ecstatic, but whilst part of me was euphoric, another part was somewhat fearful. What are you saying, Ezekiel? Something doesn't feel right. Perhaps we ought to wait. Ezekiel stood abruptly, his sentimental eyes filled with indignation. He snarled, "Do you refuse me, Eleanor? That means you lied to me about your affections." I rose and approached him. "No, Ezekiel, I have never lied to you about anything. I just cannot differentiate between what is real and what is fantasy. So much has happened, so many strange events and revelations. This coincidence about your name and the evil monks, that is all." He narrowed his eyes and fixed his gaze upon me, awaiting my answer. I breathed heavily before replying solemnly, "I will marry you, Ezekiel. I will be your bride." A smile crept onto his lips, and he raised his eyebrow calculatingly. "Excellent! I don't want to wait until tomorrow. Weddings are normally in the morning, but let's do things a little differently. Go back to Vernon Hall and get dressed. I'll come to you in an hour's time. We shall go to a church in the nearby village and marry in secret. I don't wish to invite anyone. As for the witnesses, you may bring Bertha along, and I shall find somebody else." I couldn't believe my ears. "Today?" I shook my head in disbelief. "Ezekiel, I don't even have a wedding dress, and why does it have to be such a secret?" I pleaded. Ezekiel was vexed. "Oh God, Eleanor, you do realize the entire town is against you for what you did to Amelia's body. Would you really invite them to your wedding? Would they even come? They aren't your well wishers, Eleanor. And as far as a wedding dress is concerned, surely you must possess a white dress or a gown. I'm sure Amelia had one. Just wear anything. What matters most is that we'll be married. The other things are mere formalities," he scoffed. I could only stare at him in silence. "Very well, Ezekiel. I shall do as you say," I replied submissively. He held my arms and beamed at me. "Good girl. Now quickly return to Vernon Hall and adorn yourself in a pretty white dress. I shall come to collect my bride soon." I nodded passively, then exclaimed, "Ezekiel, there is something else too. The pastor's son brought me to the woodlands earlier today. Years ago, he saw Amelia and a man bury someone's body there. He didn't recognize the man, but I believe it was Hugo." I fell silent. Ezekiel's beam morphed into a look of utmost terror. He withdrew his hands and fell into a disconcerting silence. He stroked his goatee, then spoke softly. "I see. Well, it's all in the past now, Eleanor. Hugo's gone, as is Amelia. As for whomsoever is buried in the woodlands, well, we may never know. Now do run along. We have a wedding to look forward to." I left Ezekiel's cabin sluggishly. My head was heavy, and I felt emotionless. My eyes were pained. I knew something was amiss. But I had to be Ezekiel's bride. My mind operated mechanically, and I rode off toward Vernon Hall, the house that had unleashed all the horrors in my life.